different strategies to survive, as foreseen
in einem ehemals
in an ex pro-national socialistic, then Christian,
aber immer sicher
but in any case radical capitalistic family.
Das Repräsentieren in der Gesellschaft,
The representation in
das
society,
Sein über Haben,
the being over having,
das Haben vor anderen,
the having in front of others,
die Unterscheidung und Markierung der eigenen Existenz
which is
im Verhältnis
the
zu
differentiation
anderen
of the own
heißt
existence in relation to others,
die Kultur der Repräsentation des Habens,
the culture of the representation of having, which defines the being,
Gewalt,
violence,
das Krachen der Konzepte des Seins,
the exploding of the concepts of being,
das sich nicht fügt den gesellschaftlichen Vorsehungen,
which is not possible to conduct
häusliche Gewalt,
towards the directions of society, domestic violence.
Method Body. Der Körper prozessiert seine Entscheidungen
The body is processing its decisions
und wird.
and becomes.
Er lernt die Möglichkeit des Zugriffs,
The body learns the possibilities
die
of
Möglichkeit der
operations.
konzentrierten Betrachtung,
The body learns the possibilities of concentrated observations.
ob etwas anders
Everything in the
sein
research,
könnte,
searching for the possibility of something can be different as it seems, as it should be.
Widerstand,
Resistance,
Method Body. Die Räume, die durch die in ihnen eingelassenen
the
Wertigkeiten,
spaces
die in
which are
den nötigen
pre-constructed
Aushandlungen
through
bestimmen.
their foreseen valuations.
Wann lerne ich Dinge anders zu machen?
When I learn to doing things different as they should be,
Ist das der Beginn einer Methode?
is this the beginning of a method?
Nicht das Zitieren gesicherter Vereinbarungen,
Not as a quoting
sondern
of
das
sure
Ergreifen
contracts,
des
but
eigenen Zweifels.
the grasping of the own doubt,
Im Versuch, genau diesen zu einer Handlung zusammenzuführen.
in the research to putting this doubt together for an act,
Sich ermächtigen, sodass die Handlung
Empowerment.
den Zweifel ansichtig macht.
so that the act makes the doubt visible.
Appearance. Über das Erscheinen meiner Handlungen werde ich
About the appearance of my acts, I become. I become in front of others.
werde sichtbar, übertun,
I become visible
Meinungen,
via acts,
Unterscheidungen.
opinions,
Was
decisions.
heißt das?
What does this mean?
Method Body. Autoritäten,
Authorities,
Orientierungen, Disziplinen.
orientations, disciplines.
Woher kommen die Autoritäten und Disziplinen?
Where do
die
the
helfen
authorities
sollen,
and disciplines come from, which should help me to organize my acts?
Eine Methode kann nur wirksam werden,
A
wenn ich
method
sie
can
als
only
Vorgehen
become effective
genau beschreiben kann
when I'm able to describe the steps.
und sich daraus Handlungen
And from these
von einem
descriptions,
bestimmten Tun ergeben,
a particular way of processing
die
is
eine
possible
Kette
to
von
reach,
bestimmten Perspektiven ergibt.
which are offering a particular perspective.
Methode muss teilbar sein.
A method has to be shared.
Method Body. Meiner und der von anderen.
Method body, mine and the one of others.
Fusion und Ausgreifung.
Fusion and grasping out.
Weg von mir und hin zu mir.
Far away from myself and towards myself.
Wiederholen und aneignen.
Repetition and appropriation.
Körper in Gefahr.
Body in danger. Second part. Which question has the legitimacy and necessity to be with me and my life for several months, to be my focus and to organize as my focus my knowledge? How this knowledge can become a part of a shareable knowledge, of a shareable experiment. What can be that knowledge that in becoming to know changes as practice my perspective and method of actions? Means it defines, sharpens and creates pleasure to think differently and in consequence to act differently. Is it about formatting of knowledge or about formations of awareness? What are the fetishes or symbols of cognitions, or what is the thought in a moment? How I choose the knowledge, formulate and materialize it. And continuing, how this knowledge changes, being transformed in a different medium in the translation in material. Movements with material, movements in material. How and because of what the own interest produces a differentiation, a boundary between this and that, which then produces a cut, an outline. These immediate separations between something and something else seem required, natural, sometimes automatic. But from where appears this sureness, this certitude, the necessity of this specific formulation, this expression, education, desire, taste, culture, belonging, utility? Each decision separates the material that appears more and more of the original interest and brings it at the same time nearer to it. Emancipates the original question, let it move, alive by its own, but still not unguilty. Forget secure thoughts. It's impossible to create this 100% brilliant thoughts available and functioning in any context. Forget it. Chronology of decisions. Each decision creates an in and exclusion, redefines the material and the focus on an artistic act, creates consequences for the materialization and formation of thoughts. The generic of decision creates the artistic act. Really every decision in and with the material has deep consequences in the processing of the artistic becoming. Each decision has nearly the same consequence. The artwork is the condensation of a series of decisions. It is a chronology of acts and thoughts, which organize and organized the material that then appears. A precarious form. The question of belonging. Form without belonging is not possible. Every form already exists in previous own practices or in the practice of others and in practices already existent in history. But the appropriation and redefinition of a particular form and its concrete processing of the consequences of this form makes a particular experience appear and changes the form. This experience creates a knowledge in dialogue with an act of formulation of an artwork, initiated of an interest or created by a thought. And again, not all of these forming procedures are conscient decisions. Some are filled, sponge effects of cultural beings, of cultural belongings, implemented with certainties, and in our specific way of differentiations, which are always creating a measure for comparison or relations. How much is needed to organize? To organize material, writing, actions, dance, words, what is the basis to create a structure? Or is a structure only existent to assure yourself, driven by fear, conducting actions and thoughts into grammars, to create a comparability? What is a theory of practice? A practical theory? I don't think so. How is it possible to generate something that has the capacity to become material, which guides further out? Yes, which becomes material for others, as an example of other possibilities of thinking acts material. Following the grammar of decisions in and with material, trying to grasp this conscious, putting them into consciousness. What is the question? When does the searching for a question, a really precise question, becomes the searching for the legitimacy for their own actions, creations, for their own being? What it would provoke, not to simplify anymore or to mediate. What would the denying of any simplification evoke, even if it seems to create a sphere without context? Complete solitude of thinking? Perhaps this is exactly the chance to navigate yourself through your own consequences and to make through this operation the social parts in your thoughts visible. Is this only self-referential? Where is the difference between something really general and universal and only self-referentiality? No idea. Organization and processes in the uncertitude, that you have to believe yourself, to continue to act, to formulate, to expose, to research, for finding a form that can create its own attitude, can take place, can expand. Representation and crystallization of a specific moment, which can only exist in this particular form, in this particular way, and is condensing in this form the process of thoughts and acts, and putting them through that process into the manege of meanings. Setting free or holding tight. Explaining and contextualizing. Protecting. Making clear. Making understandable. Upload it with the thesis of its production, because the exposable material can only be a fragment of a complex process, stays never intact, for yourself sometimes past, the exposed outline of a possibility, the outline of a possible constellation shared with others. What provokes in a process? An object, a figure, a thesis, a theme, a fact, a question? For sure, something outside of myself. The outside binds the actions in a bigger context. What the hell can it ever be? Documents, incidents, facts become figures and partners, strategies to survive, ideologies, creations of reality, which are always connected with the space, the context, the geopolitical surrounding in which you are part of in this moment. These circumstances organize the grammar of appearance and the way to exist, and this concrete context is organizing and evaluating the meaning of all you're doing. Manege, meaning. Setting free. Is this only a pseudo-democratic lie? Taking position, responsibility. Responsibility for the material, for your question, for the ethic of your acts, and the origin motivation of your acting in front of society. What should that be, society? The other inside me, which you can never reject. The skin as a transition between me and others. Other, different others. Everything different. The others in my memory. The others in my fiction about context, about my surrounding. Fictions of others which are always part of myself. When the skin of the surrounding other becomes invalid, becomes transcendent, gets infected, gets appalled. which meaning is ever free or decruited. Independence. Orientations. Spatializations. Spatializations as materializations of thoughts, which get the chance to talk to you, getting in a dialogue with yourself. Operations. Operations as contract, as a contract with oneself. Operations which create distance to the idea of yourself, no oneself, no self. The operation is the act of processing consequences of a particular decision. The operation is a foreign experience of yourself, in a particular formulation, in acting towards a material to become. There is no identity with yourself. You are a collection of actions, acts in different contexts and situations. You are a collection of situated facts, infecting next acts or emotions, which will inform previous activities, thoughts, sensibilities, and relations you will produce. The body. The artist body is the archive and the processor of its decisions, impermanent re-information of circumstances, of interests, of needs, of desires, of fascinations, of dangers, etc. The method of differentiations becomes the instrument of orientation of this specific body, filled with methods, thoughts, strategies, and differentiations. This body is never the same. This body is in a permanent exchange with facts, situations, and circumstances. This body is surrounded by. This body is part of or dependent of. This body is in a permanent instability of exchange, in a permanent circulation of thoughts, air, liquids, blood, experiences, facts. This body is never intact. The wounds of uncertitudes open this body towards the outside and make him in hunger of others. The wounds of uncertitudes are the places to be filled or to be completed with the world. How the medium of performance and theater can be used if the aesthetical communication, following Brecht, should provoke an interruption in the system of daily life assumption, should provoke an interruption in the moral system of our society, without presenting solutions, but to provoke conflicts. But how this is possible to prove?